Happy Saturday. Welcome to the Marketing Madmen. Trip Job and Nick Constantino live from the Battery. Back together.
Oh, my goodness. I feel like it's been an eternity, man. I feel like we've gone through more change. Somehow two of us together in the past 6 months, and I don't think anyone ever started when we started doing this thing.
No, I mean, shoot, this thing started, what is it, a little over 4 years ago?
With the station.
Yeah. It was
one of the first shows with the station.
So now it's, things have evolved quite a bit.
Yeah.
And first with the show and with us and everything else, it's been quite a ride for 4 years. So.
Yeah, that it has. And we're speaking like this is the end because unfortunately for now, this is the end. This will be the last radio show for at least the foreseeable future. I'd like to keep the podcast going. Trip and I will work on that. But to be honest with you, we'll talk about kind of the job changes and the pressures we have on us, but the time just doesn't allow it. And the time would allow it, but it wouldn't be done to the quality that I think that we want to do it towards.
Yeah, well, and I think it's something we can talk about, too, about the challenges. I mean, you're seeing it now in your new role as CMO, and I saw it as well, is, when do you need not just campaigns, but even long-term commitments? At some point, you have to figure out when you have to break away, when you need to switch things around, break them up. There's times for everything. So. Yeah,
and it's so much harder nowadays because the process of restarting it is so hard. Yeah. Like you remember, even when I came in and took over, what we were starting to now, and like there's got to be a YouTube show, there's got to be shorts. There's just so many XYZ pieces, but without those pieces, you're not fully penetrating. It's that same mixed funnel marketing. You got to be a little bit of everywhere and a little bit to everyone. And that's the part I don't have. Recording the show, super easy. Yeah. Doing a radio show. But to be honest with you, the amount of people who have stopped me and said they've heard it, it's all different places. It's YouTube, it's Instagram, it's LinkedIn, it's the radio show. So that's what we don't have time for. And as opposed to sitting here and half-assing it and winging it, I think it's time. And it's a sad day, Trip. Honestly, It's been a blast.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think when we're engaged, when we're able to do it to the ability, it's been fun. That's why we got to 189 episodes. And I think, it showed. I think it showed in the people who wanted to be involved and the people, comments we would get. But when you can't do it and be engaged like that, I think that's where you do have to question things a little bit.
We are going out as Jordan on the Bulls, not Jordan with the Wizards. I will leave it at that with my only sports metaphor for the day. We will leave as Jordan from the Bulls. So look, it's been years now. We've had a lot of guests on, right? And honestly, as I go through old ones, and part of this is going to probably be recycling old episodes, shrinking them down to 25 minutes, best ofs, because we got so many gems of wisdom. But I will tell you that, if I look at this as a learning experience, I probably learned more from these 100 or so episodes than I have from anything else I've ever done. Because you're taking people in the fire, getting their perspective. But again, we didn't talk to CMOs. Because CMOs would give you the pre-canned response and the same 6 bullet points that you have to have. They're not going to give you the oh crap moments. They're not going to give you that real peek behind the curtain. And I think what turned out in my head to be our biggest weakness turned out to be our biggest strength. Yeah. And the weakness is we need the CMO of Coca-Cola. That is one of the worst people to talk to in the world. There's nothing of value they're going to say. They're going to say the same 16 pre-canned responses because they have a brand to uphold. So I'd rather talk to the sales guy that's been there for 30 years. Let me tell you how it really goes. That's who I want to talk to. So I think that's probably my proudest thing of all this was not guarding people because of their name or because of their social media followers. It was because we let genuine stories that are not told come out, and I couldn't be more proud of that.
Well, and I think the other thing at times, we also brought people on that had made a change. Right? They might have been doing something new. They might have, moved to the area. But I think a lot of times where we had people that were not doing the same thing for the last 10 years, back to your point, and people came in with a fresh perspective of what their learnings were in the past and how they were taking it into their new business. I think of restaurants. I think of some agencies. I think of entrepreneurs, people that got into charitable give back type ideas. Yeah. And I think a lot of those stories, and there's tons of them, about why they made that shift and what they learned and how they were attacking their new endeavor.
Yeah. And again, I think that disruption and that change is, if I'm talking about what I look for in employees, I don't look for hey, I went to school and I did this and I had a really high grade and I've been doing this all my life. I look for, I handled adversity and this is how I came through it, right? So one of the things that there are no right answers, okay? No. There are times when there are right answers. When money is free and the economy is booming, there are right answers. When social media is brand new and when you're one of the first couple hundred companies in, there are answers. But right now, the way virality works, anything that works spreads so quickly that it doesn't work anymore. The pace of change. So anytime, like let's say, I see it now, like there's this guy like, oh, I have the best algorithm. Then he puts it on Instagram. Well, then everybody has it and it's worthless now. Yeah. So the pace of change is so quickly that I think the people, all right, I'll do one more sports metaphor.
Well, go ahead.
One more sports metaphor, right? It's a Tyson, right? It's not how hard you punch, it's how hard you can get punched. Yeah. And what I found is half of the job is taking hard punches.
Well, and it's what you do after you get hit in the face. I mean, that's the old the Tyson thing too, is how do you respond? And I think right now, which is actually ties into what I was going to say, is the last 4 months I've seen it, and I have not been here very much. I've been on the road quite a bit, but dealing with customers who are basically frozen by the uncertainty that we saw, whether it was tariffs, whether it was political policies, but people did not want to make any decisions in Q2. I actually had a few that just said, nope, we implemented a freeze on everything. We will talk to you again in July.
Yeah. Yeah, and look, I'm not going to criticize individual business practices, but it's the wrong move. And I'll tell you why. It's the wrong move because, one, the pace of change is so rapid that 3 months off can feel like 3 years. Yeah. And number two, like you're not, by doing that, your job is to reevaluate, but all you're doing is paralysis by analysis. All you're doing is overanalyzing. You have moved the instinct out because if you think from March to June, the instincts that you applied in March are going to apply in June, you're a fool. That's not the way this works anymore. The pace of change is so rapid right now. And I'll give you a couple of great examples, right? So TikTok is a great example, okay? TikTok banned, it's unbanned. It's banned, it's unbanned. Should people be on it? Like, okay, well, let me give you the easy answer. 1, are you targeting young people? 2, do you have compelling content? 3, do you care if they buy or not? Because if you think they're going to buy because they saw a TikTok video, you're out of your mind. The amount of touch points you need. So if you're trying to influence a younger generation, then you should be on TikTok, whether it's illegal or not, because that's where these kids are. Right. But if you think you're going to magically find this secret hidden sauce to turn TikTok into a conversion mechanism, you're out of your freaking mind. Yeah. It doesn't work.
Yeah, that's going back to the basics of, and that's not following trends or what someone else is doing or what they heard.
I agree, but at the same time, Facebook is so oversaturated that the opportunity actually is on TikTok because there's less people because people are uncertain. So if you are trying to accomplish that, you should be on TikTok. And what happens in March may not even happen in June. Yeah. So, and I know B2B, the sales processes are much slower, but I think that's one of the biggest things is I've come to learn that, one, you got to find really good partners. You got to meet with people who are willing to take the punches with you, not throw you under the bus when it happens. And that's unfortunately the nature of business right now, is everyone just makes excuses for everything.
Well, I think it's the key. I mean, when you do those partnerships, are you willing, we're going to ride some waves up and we're going to ride some waves down, but are we committed to doing this for X period of time?
Yeah, and money talks and BS walks. Like, how are we committed to this? What is the commitment? Right? Because if you're going to say you're going to commit to me, but all of a sudden there's a mistake made, and instead of going to fix it, you're blaming Facebook, then you're not a partner. Yeah. Right? I pay you to manage these accounts. Fully own it or get out of the way. And that seems to be what's happening now. And look, we'll talk probably in the next segment a lot of the disruption that's happened, especially in the marketing industry and the and the agency world. But that was one of the other things, is finally what we really wanted to do was get a perspective from the agencies, because we were both so anti-agency, so we gave them a chance to talk.
I was thinking that would be the middle segment. We could really dive into that a little bit.
Oh, man. How much time you got?
I figured that's why we got 22 minutes there. We really spent a lot of time about that.
I do want to give a quick shout out. So one of our lovely guests, Joanne Harold, she was a lot of help for us throughout all of this. And we have her lovely daughter, Lily, with us in the room. And she is my intern for the summer, and she's doing a wonderful job. And she kicks ass and takes names, and we figure something out about jewelry. I don't know anything, so we're learning on the fly. We'll probably have her join the last segment to talk about how I am to be around and what a douchebag I am. We'll probably have something like that in the last segment. So all right, Trip, so we got 2 minutes left in this. Talk a little bit about, just give people some perspective on where you've been traveling, what the meetings are like, what the day-to-day is, because it's got to be so different than when you were sitting in the paper industry and marketing.
Yeah, no, I think a lot of what we've done, most of my time spent this spring was really thought leadership and content. So, I mean, I ended up speaking, I think, 5 or 6 different times at conferences and events. Got to give a keynote speech and also sit on an executive panel at one of the paper industry big events during the year. But now we're getting into other areas. We're getting into new technology, carbon capture with greenhouse gas, and dealing with things that have some influence in politics as well as industry. But that's probably the biggest thing. It's just been because of the uncertainty, people are looking for experts and insights and things to do. So I ended up being out on the road a lot more at various conferences and trade events, and even customer sales meetings and things like that, giving a perspective of the industry. So I say basically I spent the second quarter of the year on Delta is probably the best way to look at it.
Yeah, well, look, I'm happy that you were doing it in person and not doing it in Teams and Zoom, because you're not a thought leader if you're on a Zoom call. I don't care what anybody says. There's no thought leadership. Thought leaders say, get me in front of people. If you don't have that personal connection, it's over.
And that was the key. I mean, in most of the places I went, I will say, is these conferences, people were back and they were packing the rooms. Yeah. And in one case, we had about 600 people, and at the keynote address, and some others, we had companies that were bringing all of their sales teams back in. 120 people, global sales team. So that part, people are spending again and realizing there is value in having that insight. So that's good to see. So.
Yeah, and we'll come back from the break. I'll talk a little bit about the trade show I went to, the JCK. It's about 50,000 people in Vegas for the largest jewelry expo in the world. So that was my first time ever attending a trade show as a business person, not as a person who gets to go to CES and maybe the AVNs. I don't know if I'll talk about that one or not.
Well, one of the things, when we come back, we'll dive into that, but I also want to get a little bit of Nick's update, and so what you've been doing over the last few months. So when we come back, we'll hit those topics, and you've been listening to the Marketing Madmen on Extra 106.3. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Marketing Madmen. Trip Job and Nick Constantino here, live from the Battery. And, I gave a little bit of my update for the last 3 or 4 months. I will say one thing, and then we'll get your update, is I do see, and the more and more we talk about it, there is a difference between what I would call conferences, seminars, and trade shows. Yeah. And maybe we'll come back to that, because I think you got some funny stories about trade shows. And all I'll say is I think there is a big difference. I mean, trade show is the prototypical walk around an exhibit hall and that's all there is there, versus maybe conferences, seminars, training sessions.
Well, you forgot hanging out with Snoop Dogg, because that was a part of it also.
That's true. But anyhow, so Nick, get us up to speed. What's life been like now that you've switched roles?
Yeah, first off, just a shout out to David Dickey and 680 The Fan and Extra 106.3 for allowing us to do this. When I started guest hosting with Trip, it was really just, we didn't really know what this was. I mean, the station was brand new. Who the hell's doing a marketing show on radio? Almost nobody. Yeah. So, they had faith in me. And honestly, I gave up a really good gig here in the public spotlight, in media, what I loved. I was in habits. I was doing things. It was easy because I had the repetitiveness of doing it, to take a new job in a new industry that I know nothing about. So I left sales to go into marketing. God knows the influence this show had on it, but to go into marketing. And from that point, I took over as the chief marketing officer of one of the bigger jewelry stores, ironically, in the country, that I found out. So a lot similar with 680 The Fan, family-owned business, antiquated practices because it's been doing the same way for so long. It has not had the disruption. Private equity has not come in and changed things. There's no automation. It is literally families handing the business down to their kids. So it's been fascinating. One, to take over a CMO role, to having no formal marketing training experience, to being a CMO.
So I do have a question. Shoot. Was there anyone in that role, or was this finally a newly created role?
No. There were 22-year-old marketing directors that they expected to come in and really do some social media, organize the radio, but there was no strategy or implementation. All of the data was fragmented. The passwords were off for who's logging in where. The pictures were scattered all over the place. So it's not in my nature to just sit back and organize. So like I didn't organize until the interns came in and they were helping me organize. We hit the ground running. And look, this is what I'll tell you. Any industry that has not had private equity come into it is in a better spot because you're not being squeezed at margins. You're able to make decisions based on long-term, mid-term, and short-term business plans. And what I found the hardest but also the most rewarding is that everybody's got great ideas for 3 months. Yeah. Right? No one knows how those 3 months are going to help you 3 years down the road. And a lot of the insights we've had with who we've met with and a lot of my marketing that I've been trained on in long-term brand are long-term plays. Yeah. And once you can convince somebody the value of their brand and how that drives the value of their revenue, it is an easy thing to market. Yeah. But it's a hard thing to get yourself in that point. So that's probably been the hardest thing is just the difference between brand marketing and performance marketing. It's misunderstood everywhere. It's not something you can teach because performance marketing didn't exist. Yeah. The kids that are in college now may know about it, but they're not CMOs, they're not executives.
Yeah, and you're getting, what have you done for me lately? Yeah. And you're in a consumer environment where people hear and see things and they're like, wait a second, why didn't this work? Because we did this a week ago.
Yeah, and look, we're in an advantage, right? And this is to give credit to the Solomon family, but 90% of our traffic comes in from people Googling us by name. They search for us by name, right? Yeah. So all the disruption you hear with answer engine optimization and AI, if they're looking for you by name, none of that matters. Right. So the hard, heavy lifting was already done, and it was done because they were on radio for 40 years. Yeah. And I will stick to it to this day. The biggest problem, and I guess we could start our rant on agencies now, is that because they're so singular focused, they don't understand the gold mine that they were just handed, right? Imagine you working it as an agency to a company who 90% of their traffic was people searching them by name. How easy is your freaking job, right? Pay-per-click works better because people recognize you. Social media ads work better because people recognize you. The site is already SEO optimized. You walked into a gold mine, and instead of sitting there realizing that, their natural instinct is to say you should come back from radio.
Yeah. So I don't know the answer to this. But I'm
going to pretend I do.
Of the 190 or so episodes we had, how many agencies do you think we had on?
A dozen, I would say. I would say a dozen.
Yeah, somewhere in the teens.
I'd say a dozen.
Yeah,
I would say a dozen.
So,
and some don't even exist anymore. Some of them don't even exist anymore.
Well, I was going to say, not that, look, there's always differences, but how much did we hear different, do you say, during those dozen or so episodes?
I heard the same 14 words restructured probably by AI 14 different ways. But and look, I'm very understanding because at the same time, in the role, I walked into pretty much an ownership role, right? My payment structures are on profit. Like, I don't care how many people came to the website. I'm more concerned with, do the salespeople have the tools to accomplish their goals, which is why I think it's been successful so far. But running a business is hard. Yeah. It's hard to interview people. It's hard to find staff. People's motivations are different. They don't stay for the same reasons. Manpower is expensive. And most importantly, nobody wants to do work. Yeah. Nobody wants to do the grunt work. When I say grunt work, SEO sucks. If you ever looked at SEMrush, it's 4,000 options, of which one change may not make any impact for 7 months. It is thankless work. It is thoughtless work. It is awful work. And the biggest problem is what everybody wants to do now is they want to strategize. They want to, but nobody wants to actually do the work. So we have a cultural, structural problem with marketing, not an agency problem, but the agencies, I believe, are actually least equipped to handle the change of what's coming. And that's my big beef.
Well, and I think there's two things. One, it's the shiny new ball syndrome that I've seen over and over again for 2 to 3 decades. Right. So I think that's somewhat of what some agencies chase. And, this is what's going on out here. Here's why we're going to be different. We're going to be able to show you that. That's what I mean. That's always been out there, whether it was, moving into, TV or other ad spaces or digital, whatever
but that being
it is.
Said, to be fair, being a first in can be immensely changing, like ever changing for a business if you do it right.
That's the key. And if someone truly understands, I mean,
gets lucky.
We can go into the whole,
gets lucky.
We can go into the whole programmatic. That's another rant I know we can get on.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people.
Well, we can talk about that because that's another one. Like programmatic is actually much easier to understand than people give credit for if you know how to place it. And I came from a place where I was on the other side selling the programmatic, so I saw the dashboards. So look, I don't want to make this sound malicious, right? But one of the things that drives me crazy is I would rather you lie to my face because you're a piece of crap than lie to my face because you're stupid and naive. And when I'm seeing more and more, these people don't mean harm by what they do. They just don't know what they're talking about.
Well, I guess that's part of where I was going to is I think the agencies that do it well and the ones that make sense are the ones who truly know what they are and unabashedly about this is what we do and this is what we do well and this is what we don't do.
Yeah.
And don't go off chasing other things because you see this, oh, we lost this account because we didn't offer, social media focus or whatever. It's think about what you do well. And sometimes, guess what? You don't need to do it all for somebody.
Yeah. But from the other side, and as now someone who's in that CMO role, CMOs also do things that are not in their core competencies that they shouldn't be doing.
Oh, yeah.
I'll tell you right now, Facebook marketing has been the bane of my existence now. So, and I'll tell you why. One, like everybody's got a different idea of what success looks like, which keeps the industry on its toes which works in Meta's advantage, right? Everything is an excuse. So, okay, the ads didn't perform well. Well, the landing page sucked. Okay, well, why don't you make me a landing page? Oh, we don't do that. Okay, we made a landing page. The landing page is performing better. Oh, the copy was terrible. Okay, so why didn't you do that? Oh, we don't do that. So instead of saying, let me grow this for you, it is, this is what you did wrong, this is what you did, this is what you did wrong. So if I'm being a business hat, why in God's name am I paying you to tell me what I'm doing wrong? Yeah. Fix it. Take money out of the Facebook budget to fix these things. And so you're talking about your core competency, right? So if your core competency is placing media, every day that passes, you are being less and less valuable because AI can place the media. Anything that's transactional, AI can figure out in 6 seconds. The hard part is connecting to an audience. The hard part is designing web pages that convert. The hard part is, so why am I paying somebody to do the easy stuff when I'm stuck doing all the hard stuff? That's what doesn't make sense. And that's what I talk about. They don't want to do the hard work. And if they do, I've done it, so I know how long it takes. Yeah. So it takes me 15 minutes to design an ad. You're going to charge me $3,000 for something that take an hour and a half? Who do you think you are? So it's almost an unwinning situation. And I've been told now by 3 different people, because I've asked a lot of people, and they all said at the same time, if there was a good agency out there, we would all be using it. Yeah. And they are not good. Their model's not built to succeed right now.
Yeah. No, and again, I think there are agencies who do certain things very well.
Right, but
absolutely.
No offense, but then my burden is wrangling all these people together, and all they try to do is fight with each other. Like the best agency, if you talked amongst yourselves and came to me with a plan, great. But that's not how it happens. It does not happen this way. I can't even get my organic social person and my my social media agency to talk to each other.
Right, and I do think that is one slight difference between B2B and B2C, is because of the pace and because of some of that, there is interaction, but you can bring a little more specialists together because there's not everything that needs to happen in the same week, so to speak. Yeah. And so I think, I've seen it done well. I've not been as involved in the B2C space, but there you probably need fewer, but to your point, you've got to have that understanding of the full marketing cycle.
I think one of the things that I think is happening, and it's going to keep happening, and I think there's a reason for it, is we're going to get to points where everything is done agency out of house, everything goes in-house, everything leaves in-house to go agency, and we're on the upswing actually of people leaving in-house. Because what happens with in-house is no matter what, the world is so financially driven that you're so beholden to the company that you never think outside the box, and you don't look at it with external eyes. So like that, but that's where a good agent. But what are you going to hire? A strategy agency? So I'm going to spend $8,000 on a strategy agency that I could spend $8,000 to buy media with, right? Like it's just there's no answers to the questions. And I love Jaron Solomon, the guy that hired me, that runs the business. But if he knew the answers, he wouldn't have hired me. So there are no answers to philosophically hard questions, which is what's made the industry so ripe for disruption right now. And it's going to be weird to see what happens over the next 3 to 4 years. It really is.
Yeah. Well, and there's. I think part of that is there's so many options out there too. Yeah. Right. And people are trying to deal with, again, should I be doing this? Should I be doing that? And how do you make those decisions? Yeah. So.
Well, and again, like part of this is that because every time you add more jargon, you add more salespeople. And the salespeople sell on jargon. And then when you ask serious questions, they don't know how to answer the serious questions. So, my advice simply is that you have to have an inbound lead mechanism, but for most industries, I say you have to be proactive. Agencies not to need to start being more reactive. Listen to what the needs are and stop shoving stuff down people's throats. So Lily and I are working on an RFP right now, and the RFP is going to be very different than anyone's ever seen. What did I say, Lily? Like, I need six bullet points. They started and their objective was like 14 pages long. And I was like, guys, this is the objective. The objective is make us money. That's it. That's the only objective. Make us more money.
We need to be successful.
And then when it goes into what? Here are the places I think you should categorize. Here's where you should look. Make them do the work. We have a brand already. So I think that I wish that the RFP system was a little better. You know, remember we had Daniel Wiener on who runs You Should Talk To, who is the conduit, who actually is the guy who matches agencies up, right? I hate that his job exists because it means that CMOs don't know how to talk to agencies, which means what should be invented is a platform where CMOs can log in and see these agencies that are pre-vetted based on their core competencies, and someone would make $1 billion on that. If that person knew to market it and knew how to market it, which will never happen.
And knew how to quantify it, right? I mean, I think that's probably a key part of it. But
quantifying is easy. Take 2% of every bit that goes. The agency will pay 2% to have you make these matches up just by having an online portal.
No, I meant the core competencies. Truly understand. Going back to your point earlier about someone who didn't just talk about what they do, but they actually understood it. And do it well. So I do want to go on to one topic that you kind of opened up, and you've heard me probably talk about this 40 or 50 times, but is sales and marketing within the company. And now that you've made the switch over, what are your perspectives? I saw one of the classic cartoons the other day about sales going, the leads stink, and marketing's going, the sales team doesn't know how to close. So where are you with that now that you're in your new role?
So this is what I'm going to say. If you really are given the keys to the kitchen, that's BS. Okay, so if you have the consumer lifetime value, the average sales transaction, the leads coming in, the profit, if you have the real numbers, then all of that is just anecdotal, and salespeople are always going to sell themselves as a story. So there's two things I did. One, when I signed my contract, I signed myself into having full access to everything, but with an accountability mechanism that this is how I was going to be paid, which means you have to have access, right? Number two, I contracted in my actual marketing budget and can only be changed on the profitability or unprofitability of the company. So I'm not at the whim of someone deciding. It is contracted in that we're going to spend this much money based on profit and all these things. So those two things made my life immensely easier because now I know what's really going on. But the most important thing I did was make sure everybody knows I was a sales manager for 15 years. And a lot of the guys had already known me because I'd been the sales manager of 680 and went over there. So I go, look, guys, all that matters is that you guys have the tools you need to succeed. That is the only goal of marketing, okay? It worked really well for 3 months. And then what happens is that everybody sees that I'm listening to everybody, so they come and the ideas get dumber and dumber and dumber. And it's not a criticism of people, it's a criticism of they are singularly focused on their book of business and closing deals. They're not thinking of the long term, they're not thinking of, hey, maybe it's worth taking margin on somebody, taking less profit because they're going to come back for the next 10 years. That is not how they are trained to think. They are trained to think of closing business in the right now. And again, unfortunately for most marketers, they fall into that same trap where it's always about 3 months, 6 months. The business will not grow again if you want to grow.
But what you're doing, and what I believe in this is, look, sales and marketing leadership first start having that dialogue. Right. And you've got to have.
We're in the right size company for that. Vegas was a great example of me and the sales director, and it was not to talk business. It was to understand psychologically what motivates each person. Is it money? Is it success? Because once you psychologically understand the person that you're working with both ways, then you can have an honest, real to God conversation. And and what I found is that, look, people, it's the same as sales, right? People don't like you when you're brash and ask the questions until they answer them and they're like, wow, that was a lot easier than beating around the bush. Thank God. And that is how business should be conducted. That's what I found. It's just easier to have those conversations.
Yeah, I mean, cut to the chase at times, and at least have that communication where it's open and not the walls are siloed, and you get back to the finger pointing or this is what's important to me today, and not over the longer period of time. But again, I've seen so many organizations that don't even have that.
Yeah.
Right. And the leadership doesn't communicate. You don't understand where you're working, and you end up going at cross purposes. And guess what? Then it goes all the way up, and then someone has to make a decision of
this or that.
This organization's not working, or this organization's not working.
And look, there's also caveats to that. And one of the caveats is marketing people are better trained to handle the problems that come along with business, right? Yeah. We need a new sales book. Okay, well, my title doesn't say sales, but this guy doesn't know how to design in Photoshop, so I got to make a sales book. So the problem is that because people cannot compartmentalize, they're like, Nick, we hate the sales books. I go, you think I designed it? I was told what to put on it. I just made it. So. And the other thing is that even if you are sales adept, you cannot be giving advice or get involved in what the sales department does, because that is the easiest way to punch a ticket to nowhere land, right? If someone asks your opinion, give your opinion, but as a smart marketer, give it in a way that does not blame or pick sides, but says, here is the observation to which I have made. Because if you start saying that you think you can run a sales department better, the burden of sales is immensely harder than the burden of marketing.
And they're full-time jobs. Both of them are full-time jobs.
Both of them are full-time job and a half.
Yeah. And so, but I mean, again, you can make yourself more aware and astute of what's going on, at least by having the communication.
In any business.
So tell me about Vegas. You said you had some funny stories out there.
So we went to JCK. JCK is the largest jewelry trade show in the world. For some context, in the Venetian and the Wynn, there were a couple of thousand vendors, 50, 60,000 people, and probably 70% of the new jewelry in the world was in that building at those times. So after some quick rudimentary fake math, there was enough money in there in the insurance policies to be like the 5th or 6th largest GDP in the world. Like crazy stuff about the amount of money. There was a ring that I was holding that was a $2 million ring wholesale. Okay? So we met every one of our partners, all these brands you buy. We're there on-site buying. We're meeting. I would go meet with marketing. They would sell us their newest line. Very heated conversations, because like I've come to terms with, I have the way the world is, the transparency, like SEM Rush is a great example. I know how many people are searching any website in the world by just having a $200 subscription, okay? And I can know by our search console how many people came into our site by searching for XYZ. So these brands' job is to go in and say, we're the #1 brand in the world. And I go, by what metrics? And they go, well, it's very complicated. I go, no, it's not. Let me show you my metrics. And in that starts, at first, a very heated conversation, because I don't care what is happening nationally or the magazine that claimed you, because I get awards from freaking Ethiopia twice a week that says, you have won an award, buy a plaque. Like, that's not what I care about. So you meet with these people, we have fun, we see jewelry. I know what can be marketed. I don't know what's going to sell in the store. So then I break off with my marketing people, but then we go out at night. We're wined and dined. I mean, I went to Delmonico's by Emeril Lagasse 3 nights in a row, which sounds like a dream until you realize that you've gained 13 pounds, right? My freaking gout is acting up because I'm eating French onion bone marrow soup.
When the waiter, just brings you your drink right when you sit down, that's a little bit of a problem, right?
Well, and we did one at the chef's table. Shout out to my boys at Amden, because we sat at the chef's table and we were cracking retail price $1,000 bottles of wine. Delmonico's price $5,000-$6,000 bottles of wine. So like, it was wonderful. It was a great experience. I learned more than I ever have. I know about the industry. I know how the pricing works. Like, I was absorbing like a sponge, and we would interview all the CEOs of these companies. And I was waking up at 5 in the morning to put the content out live, because the hashtags were active then. So I wanted to be the first out. And we really made a big stink at the show. And I was personally seen next to every CEO of every jewelry company. 2 different people tried to poach me away and hire me with Jaron there. Like, we went about it as well as we could have. That being said, it was the first year. Wait till you see next year. The only thing I'm going to say is there will be costumes, and I will be wearing costumes. I will be in the most ridiculous. I will just be. It is a spectacle.
The Hamburglar?
It was a spectacle.
Lily's laughing a little bit. There's an inside joke there, but so well, that's neat. No, and so it sounds like a little different than the traditional trade show out there. So it sounds like a little higher end, a little more.
It was immensely higher end. To think about it, if you think about it, I just said the Wynn and the Palazzo. So you're at the 2 most prominent, probably side-by-side casinos down there. So it was wild, but it was fun. And if you use those opportunities to learn, and The only thing I'm going to say is I want to really give credit to Jaron because two things. One, I told him that I need to be trained on sales. And he's like, shut up, you'll figure it out in Vegas. And two, he brought me along as his number 2 guy. Yeah. And he's one of the biggest names in the industry. So I was immediately trusted and immediately valued and had credibility, which is not something that most people walk into. And I was very thankful for that.
That's really helpful. Well, hey, when we come back from the break, we'll do a few more learnings.
And then the final sign off, baby.
All right. Well, you've been listening to the Marketing Madmen on Extra 106.3. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to the Marketing Madmen. Nick Constantino and Trip Job here, and I think this is the final sign-off, bud. So I think we do some tips, some advice, and then we do our farewells to the wonderful radio world. So what do you got? You go first. Give me a couple of thank yous and a couple of ending notes, and we'll rattle back and forth, and we'll rock and roll that way.
Well, thank you. I mean, you said it before, but David Dickey for taking the chance and having a vision to put some local content together, and that, marketing might be of interest to anyone, and that we might, make it more than a month.
Yeah, for sure.
Which that's one. And then I actually bumped into him on the street the other night, but he's still here. But Tug Howard took us under his wing when we got started, and outside of doing some marketing interviews and things of that nature, I'd never been in front of a microphone very often, and so do a lot of thanks to Tug. And then Nick, you've been great. I mean, when I was probably losing a little bit of momentum when you kind of jumped from guest host into full time, and as I was shifting into being on the road quite a bit, able to really pick up the back end of your comments before. How do we make this better? How do we do all the things that can promote the show? So thank you.
Yeah,
I think all three of you, and it's just been a fun experience for the last 4 years.
Yeah, I would be remiss to give like a general thank you to the radio industry. I've been in it in a lot of years in my life, and it's still amazing to me. It's one of two things happen. One, the salespeople that I'm dealing with are the best salespeople in the world, or they really have people that listen to this show. And, just so I can be clear, podcasts are stupid. Okay, unless you're Joe Rogan, unless you're say my name, whatever those big ones are, nobody cares about your podcast. Nobody is listening, right? They will listen for 4-minute specs to say they heard it because a friend did. Yeah. Nobody's listening. That being said, the amount of people that tune into this radio show, and I'm not saying it's 1 million, but if 2,000-3,000 people turn in a week, man, you're reaching 2,000 or 3,000 people that who knows what impact you could have.
It's a couple thousand more than I ever expected.
So what I'm generally saying is one, don't fall victim to the hype. If you're going to be in podcasting, find someone that knows what they're talking about. The industry is so easy to manipulate. The same thing with these influencers. If you have the ability to advertise in radio and you can spend your time building your brand, do it. There are plenty of people who want to help you. And honestly, all I know about radio people is they care and they want to help you succeed. Now, they may not be empowered to have you succeed or have the tools to do it, but they genuinely care, which is more than I have gotten from almost every single digital agency I've ever interacted with. They take you for granted because they are the new hot thing, even though they're not anymore. So I just generally want to say thank you to radio and just for what radio has provided me, because this really is me not only signing off of this show, but it's signing off of the radio industry, which is a little depressing, and there's a tear coming down my eye, not really, but it's been a hell of a ride.
Yeah, and thanks to our guest. I mean, shoot, we could take the rest of the time.
Oh, don't worry. Lily's going to go through my list and tag all of them to make sure we get the maximum LinkedIn reach. Don't worry about that.
No, it's appreciate all the people who've been on and sharing their insights and their thoughts, and just hopefully having a fun conversation for 45 minutes each time we had someone on.
Yeah. I think the one thing what I learned the most from this is how important interviewing somebody is. Yeah. But what I got out of it selfishly was the ability to ask questions to get people the answers that I want them to give. Right? Like a good journalist doesn't ask questions that they want to know the answers to. They ask questions that they want you to give the answers to. Yeah. So you bait people into questions, and what you're trying to do is disarm, build rapport, all the things we've learned in sales. But this really helped me more when I meet with somebody, understand how to process, think in real time, answer questions, and then listening to it at 1.5 speed absolutely helped me, because I'm already fast, and having to listen to myself at 1.5 speed has just sped me up immensely. For good or bad, I've yet to find out.
Yeah, well, and I think doing some prep work, but not overly prep. I think that was my biggest learning probably in the first 6 months to when things started to progress. Sometimes, going back to overanalyzing, over prep, you need to understand what you're going to talk about, have some themes, but be able to go where the conversation takes you.
Yeah, and that's one of the hardest things about being structured for radio, right? Like 12 minutes, 13 and 9 is really hard. 12 minutes, 23 minutes and 9 is really hard, because realistically you would want the first segment to be the longest, because if it sucks, then you can pivot at the end. But really, it's hard to do that. So we've had a couple where the 9 minute, we're just like, oh my God, this is atrocious. Let's completely talk about something different. Like recently I had one and we changed to music and it turned out to be great. The other thing that I've learned, like when you talk about SEO and the Google algorithm, man, do not pretend you know, because some of the shows I thought would do the best were the biggest duds, and some of the shows that I thought were complete turds did so well because of what the algorithms are searching for, what they want. They want content that is in demand. And like I thought, like NFL receivers and PGA golfers, and it's like womp womp, they're already on. Like that weird chef that was talking about nightshade fruit, #1 download. Like it's just, you just have no idea. You have no idea.
There have been some ones I thought are really interesting. Dan, I'm drawing a blank on his last name, but talking about the adaptive entertainment.
Visquenza, Dan's a good dude.
I thought that was one of my favorite. Yeah, Culture City. That was one of my favorites we've done over the last couple of years. So I really did enjoy the conversations with the agencies. I really liked and I'm drawing a blank on his name, but the CMO of Carter's, I think thought was really good, because he was a bro and he had real conversation and he wasn't sheltered off, and he said, you know what, like I don't know if I'm doing a good job. He goes, how would I know that? He goes, like they keep me. So like, and that's part of the problem with a corporation. If you don't see the numbers, you don't have access, like you're giving reports to which other people are dictating what you see. So it could be very easy to make you look good or bad. So, I honestly, if I went back and picked, I'll probably do some top 10 lists. You know, I want to keep the content fresh. We'll probably keep doing some. There's going to be opportunities for this. The YouTube page has done incredibly well. I think we'll keep going, but I just think for what it's worth, to do the radio show the right way, and that is the bread and butter of this whole operation, it requires time that I don't think either of us are willing to put in. Well, and I think hopefully we've built a little bit of a brand that we can reposition it a little bit so that the brand doesn't become stale. And just to try to do it the same pace, the same engagement that we've had, it's going to hurt the brand. So
and I think, you know, look, you're at the age and part of your career where public speaking is something that is of value to you, right? I'm just not there yet. That doesn't benefit our company enough. The ducks are not in a row. We're not where we are. We're not in a point where we've reached growth stagnation. We're trying to expand. It's not thought leadership time. Realistically, in my ideal world, this show was the conduit to make me to go do the thought leadership and the speaking events. But to be honest with you, like, I mean, other than obviously Trip talking about paper at a freaking conference, they're terrible. Nobody has any value whatsoever.
No, on the radio, it doesn't care. I can get 200-300 people to listen about carbon capture from pulp mills,
high intent people who are in the industry to which you can influence by saying the right things, right? Marketing is really, really, really hard. Right. So I actually went to a really nice event with a Google guy at Georgia State, and at the aquarium, they really laid out a good plan of what the future is. And the future is sheer uncertainty. They weren't saying that the future is XYZ. They're saying we have no freaking clue what it is. So like, get ready for a ride.
But get ready to adapt. Right. And I think hopefully over the last couple of years, so you've heard a lot of that, and that there is no playbook. Right. And you have to listen. You have to use your gut, use some numbers, and adapt and be in front of customers. I guess that's the last thing I would leave as we talked. I remember Bruce Scal, our first guest, talked about sit in front of customers.
Yeah, it didn't work so well for them, but we'll save that conversation for another time.
So all right. Well, we're coming to the end. Nick, it's been a pleasure. It's been fantastic, and I know we'll do a few, as you said, whether it's podcast or otherwise. But I've enjoyed it, thank you for all your time and effort.
Thank you again, David Dickey. Thank you, Extra. Thank you, Jaron Solomon. Thank you, Tripp. Thank you, Darren Rand, one of the guys who originally started this. Absolutely. All of our guests. It's been a hell of a ride. It's been one of the better accomplishments of my life. I sold radio my whole life, but to be able to do it and to be able to do it to the way we did it. For those that don't know, we joke about the podcast. It's the #1 podcast coming out of this building to this day. It beats all of the other shows which is insane.
And thanks to Flounder too. Forgot him as well behind the glass.
Producer extraordinaire. I was going to have him come do his own shout out, but it looks like he disappeared into the shade back there. No, but Flounder's done a great job, and he leads us down the right path, and I think he's good at telling us what's going to work and what's not, because we don't always know. So we will leave it at that. You want to do a final sign-off, bud?
Let's do. Thanks again, and you've been listening to the Marketing Madmen on Extra 106.3. Nick and I will be back at some point.
At some point.
Cool. How the family?
Sad day.
Yeah.